Now I know I had it. See what happens when I have too many notes? Nonsense, don't need it. We've been talking about a wide range of things, the past, the present, and heading towards the future, and part of it's, I think, struck some chords with people. This has been a series of sermons unlike any before in terms of response. I've been absolutely amazed at the number of people who have taken time during the course of the week and say, you know, I've been thinking about what you said on Sunday, and thank you. I think part of it is in this apocalyptic time, a time when everything seems to be in upheaval, many of us are never quite sure what's happening, and we want to know what our roots are. And I mean that in the dramatic sense that each of us has to establish his roots. Not only the television play and the books and the most watched thing, beating out even Super Doll of last week, with so many 100 million viewers watching the last episode of Roots. But each of us wants to know where we are planted firmly and to understand how we've grown to where we are. And all of us are struggling with the today and the now, but each of us faces the future in a special way too. And so I think we've been talking about things that are touching each of us at the beginning of a new year. Our past, our present, and our hopes for the future. How do you put the future into a perspective? How do you hold on to it when there are so many things that are potential? And why is it that most of us are able to make it the day by day by day, but somehow when we look far down the road, there's a slight feeling of terror? Am I right? We struggle. We know. Every day is a battle. And every day is an opportunity. And every day is a chance to overcome. And every day we need that little extra boost in our arms to keep us going and feeling good. Because there are times, oh Lord, there are times when we just want to lay down and not have to do it anymore. We all go through it. There is no one here who hasn't gone through it, who hasn't struggled, who hasn't had to somehow or another kick themselves into gear and say, let's get up and get going. This is not where I want to be. This is not what I want to be. This is not what I am. There isn't a one of us here who doesn't sometime or another say, my honesty to God and myself and to all that I hold to be dear and true is not to allow that kind of a thing to overcome, but to move forward realistically, to face the future with certain confidence and a hope. But it is difficult. It's difficult within the biblical age itself, for according to the scriptures of today, Amos, my favorite prophet, should indicate for those of you with college-age kids or slightly older that the Hope Group, the college-age group, is going to be meeting at the end of February over in Royal Oak for a weekend. And somehow or another they've inveigled me to spend one day, Saturday, 6 hours of conversation and lectures on the prophets. I'm already tired. One day, I don't know the poor kids, but I've got to spend 6 hours, and they cut it down 2 hours because I said, hey, wait a minute. 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours first part of the afternoon, 2 hours before dinner, and 2 hours after dinner is a little bit too much. We're going to talk about the prophets. The kids are going to have a good time. If you're college age, that whole age, please listen and plan to go. It's a good chance to meet with other college age kids from across the state. Trouble for those who are waiting so longingly for the day of Yahweh. What will this day of Yahweh mean for you? It will mean darkness, not light. As when a man escapes a lion's mouth only to meet a bear. Isn't that picturesque? Don't you feel that's the way you are sometimes? There's the task. It's really about ready to swallow you, and you just barely get that over, and there's another one just as big ready to grab you. Frying pan to fire, however you want to call it. But isn't that it? As when a man escapes a lion's mouth only to meet a bear. He enters his house. Can't you see it? Picture this. This is gorgeous. He escapes the lion. He escapes the bear. He goes into his house and says, thank God I'm home. And puts his hand on the wall only for a snake to bite him. How many of you get home at night? First thing you walk in the door, your partner says, I got to tell you what Junior did today. And you say, oh. You know, right? Doesn't matter who. Well, that. Doesn't have to be Junior. It can be anybody. Okay, he enters his house. He puts his hand on the wall only for a snake to bite him. Will not the day of Yahweh be darkness? Not light? It will be gloom without a single ray of light? Wow. Now, I would do you a disservice if I quit at that point, even though that's almost as far as I'm going to go. Right? You'd walk out of here and say, oh, how do you change it? Well, I think there are a couple of things that happen. Amos goes on to talk about finding God and working with God in life, but I think one of the things that we begin to do is understand that people struggle with a very realistic problem in the Bible. Why is it that those who do evil seem to prosper? And because so many people who seem to do evil, who don't care about life, seem to prosper, seem to have everything going for them, they developed a doctrine of final things that said in the end, you will get yours. God is a just God as well as a loving God who will hold us accountable for how we act and treat each other. And consequently to people, as Amos has been talking about, who have been pleasure seekers, who have not quite understood what life is all about, who have drank wine from their silver bowls, who have had all of their places where they went off that was decorated with ivory, who couldn't care about the poor except how they could squeeze them and get a little more money out of them for pleasure. He was talking to those people, and he said at the day, the end, God will hold you accountable for where you are and what you've done. Therefore, change your ways. And as I was thinking about this, I could not help but imagine that we ourselves have been made heirs of this kind of drive for satisfaction. The multiple billions of dollars that are spent each year for the main part of our life. Work is of no value. Driving for anything else is of no value. Everything is put into recreation and entertainment. Isn't it shocking? Everything pushes you, no matter how much you resist it, towards entertainment. If you are not entertained, it isn't valuable. And no definition is made of entertainment whatsoever. Recreation, and I'm not talking about, I'm not against these things, but recreation becomes a major drive. And people spend more and more of their time driving towards the entertainment, driving towards the recreation, and seldom pausing to think about, who am I and what is there to go? Let me give you, I lost it. Jeez. I think I remember. Tell me what these people have in common. Gail Fisher, Mackenzie Phillips, Linda Blair, Richard Pryor, Godfrey Cambridge. To name 5 right off the top of the head. What do they have in common? They're all famous people, right? They're all famous people who just got in trouble with drugs. They're all famous people who have at a very early age had everything that one could possibly buy. And they have used it. They have gone the route of physical pleasure. Some, even like Linda Blair at the age of 18, has had every physical thing that you could have, and nobody apparently ever sat down with a Linda Blair and said, those are the cheap, easy to burn out things. The lasting things are the things of the mind, the spirit, the sharing, the personhood, not entertainment, not the pleasures of the flesh. Do I sound like an old-style preacher? That's what it is. I had a conversation the other day with a group of ministers. It was a strange thing. We hosted the ministers' fellowship in our home for breakfast. One of the guys complained it started at 8:30. He wanted to know why we couldn't start earlier. I know, oh, God. Thank goodness for Chrissy. She got up and she kept everything going, and I barely sneaked out to the front room and grabbed a cup of coffee as the first ones arrived. The last ones left at after 3 in the afternoon. They got so caught up in talking about things with each other. Christy said, I got to go down and run the newsletter, some stuff at the church. I said, go, you know. She brought in lunch for us. We stayed right on through. And we talked. And one of the individuals kept saying, I don't know how to break through that we are dealing with the ultimate reality of life, the real part of life, and are not in competition with the entertainment. Listen! How many times, I'm asking each one of us, how many times have you sat up on a Sunday morning and said, I ought to go to church? Oh no, look at the weather, I'll go play golf, or skiing, or a host of other things where that becomes something that you put before anything else that deals with where you live your life and how you live your life. How many people still won't come to church on a day that there's a football game because they might miss the opening kickoff? How many people still do not recognize that all the things that are pleasurable, and I don't deny them, all of you who know me know that regardless of what they are, they burn out in a hurry. Some of you who don't eat out very often will not believe this. I know. But the most sickening thing in the world is to eat out all the time. The most sickening thing in the world is to have big meals potentially there. So that day after day after day, you've got filet mignon. Oh, I know. You know, all of the fine things in the restaurants. You go out with somebody and watch what they order, and I can tell you very quickly how often they eat out. Because there are people, one of them sitting right here at the back row with sunglasses on, who eats out a great deal of time. And every time I go out with Hugo to the lunch or dinner, I'm always amazed at how he orders something very simple and plain. You can have anything you want when you go with Hugo to lunch, you know, order whatever you want. But why? Because he has learned that all of those fancy things get very tiresome very early because there's no depth to them. So I think part of what we do for the future is begin to understand that we have to reorder our priorities to the point that recreation, as important as it is put into a good place, and our kids have enough of that. But in balance to recreation, they also have study and sharing and talking and conversation and living. That entertainment is important, and that we ought to have entertainment in our lives, and we ought not to be dropping all that off. But in addition to the entertainment, we ought not to be caught up with the blitz done on us. We ought to also see that there are other sides. When the movie The Depths, I think it was, came out, $27 million budget, $8 million was spent on pre-release blitzing to make it so tasty to you, you could hardly wait for the thing to get out. Before it was filmed, smash hit, and all of the things were going, they estimated that every man, woman, and child who is a potential theater goer in the United States saw an announcement 15 times about that movie, talk about hype, before it was ever released. And we flow with it, thinking we are right in there with the heat of things, while somebody's sitting back going, ha, 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 ha. Another sucker going to the box office. How often do you hype your church? You speak 15 times a year to somebody about your church, or your godly life, or trying to answer the questions. Do you? Not 15 times for a short-term, 3-month, at the very most, rip-off. I don't care what the movie is. Do you speak about long-term, the verities of life, the opportunity just to look at one another not as a fast-paced, moving, entertaining panorama, but as people? Well, that was introduction to the sermon, but I guess that's about enough. I'm going to do part 2 next week because there's too much on this. I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about how we face the future. I want to talk about how we get in there. I want to talk about how we lay plans. I want to talk about the difference between planning for the future and postponing life. I want to talk about how you sit now, and that what you are doing now is your future. I want to talk about how too many people try to change their life when they get to the future instead of changing it now, and find it doesn't work. I want to talk about the frustration of the retiree who looks forward to a time of retirement only to discover that he's never built a foundation to retire. Because all the things that he's done are no longer being done, and when he gets there, he ain't got nothing. I want to talk about how we in our godly lives try to face up with confidence to the future. I want to talk about how we develop an ability to put things as they happen to us into a complete overall picture. I want to talk about love and sharing. I want to talk about where we are and where we're going. I want to talk about letting God move. And maybe there isn't a greater statement about the importance of the meeting to follow than to recognize that where we are now is the beginning of the future. Amen.